This is What's in Your Cup, a space for conversations with people shaping specialty coffee. Not just what's in the cup, but the story beyond it. For this episode, we brewed two delicious coffees, a Colombia Anoxic Natural by Scenery and a Colombia Pink Bourbon by Preface. Scenery is a roaster from London, a bag sourced by Airworks, a subscription service that sources lightly roasted coffees from roasters all over the world. This isn't a paid ad. I've just really enjoyed their work.
Processing is just as marketable, right, as what roasters need to market their coffees. So, you know, the more kind of attachments you can put on a coffee, I think the better it is perceived too.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, rather than just like extended fermentation, you know?
Yeah, just like a general term on it.
That's good. That's really good.
Really
Very
light.
clean, yeah.
Very clean, yeah. For such a funky process.
It's like all the like fruit is up front, which is nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like how you brewed it.
Yeah, it came out well. I've only had like a couple chances to brew it, so this was my last little dose, and came out good, yeah.
And you served it to me?
Yeah,
Thank
I've been
you.
saving it specifically for this episode.
Aww.
I had it, and I was like, no, I'm going to use this
That's
one for
sweet.
this episode.
Thank
yeah,
you.
Dude. Yeah, well, thank you for coming, honestly, making the time in your life to be here.
Of course.
I really appreciate
Pleasure.
that. Yeah. I got to do this with David and Curtis and had some interesting conversations. I got lucky with David because I felt like I could... not taking that episode seriously is a disservice, but in a way, it was like a friendly manner of getting like a practice round in for that episode, you know, because he's like my neighbor. He lives like 2 streets away.
Cool.
So it was like, dude, you want to come over and talk about coffee and kind of get a pilot episode going on?
And he's like, of course.
Yeah, running through some questions, kind of seeing what works and what doesn't. For the first episode, I set up like all the bags that we were going to brew because he brought some coffee and we brewed a couple, and I was doing a weird routine where I would go to the kitchen, pick up the kettle, bring it back here, brew, and then dump the rest of the water out and then come back. And it was just like very messy. And like, I feel like those little details can get ironed out before time. That the table looked nice with a bunch of bags and all like the gear and stuff, but it was just not.
It wasn't really the flow you wanted.
Yeah, it would just really interrupt the flow. And at the warehouse, that was also kind of a challenge because there's so many people that come through the warehouse.
So many, yeah.
And they like burst in the warehouse. You know, they're like, "Yo, what's up?" You know, like as soon as they open the door.
I've been on like calls and people, you know,
well, like that guy that went the other day.
Oh yeah.
You know, just like random happenings like that. You kind of have no control over that stuff.
Yeah.
So that was a challenge. And then also getting Curtis going to be like, "Okay, we're recording," and it'd be like somewhere else.
Yeah.
Be like, "Curtis, we're gonna record."
Oh.
Yeah, it was cute.
That's funny.
And I felt like I was interviewing Curtis. Have you ever seen that show Between Two Ferns with Zach Galifianakis?
I don't think so.
It's like Zach Galifianakis, the guy from The Hangover, does a show where there's like 2 plants and just random name he calls, but he asks them the most awkwardly timed questions in a weird comedic sense that he has going on. It's like you play the beginning of that episode and you're not sure if you started the podcast from the beginning because it just throws you for a loop.
That's cool.
Yeah, but that's how Curtis started his own episode. As soon as we hit record and as soon as I sat down, we were both wearing our little Presta hunting hats.
Oh, cute.
Yeah.
Cute.
And I didn't catch it, but he was like, "Welcome to the Southwest Hunting Show." And he just did like a little skit where I was like, what is going on? I have no idea what we're talking about, but it was fun.
He's gotten so much more into public speaking, I think, in the last couple of years. When I first met him, he was really, really shy. But,
wow.
Yeah.
I didn't get to meet him through that, but I did mention in the podcast that I finally sat down the man, the myth, the legend. Because if you look up info about Curtis online, like there's not
endless.
There's endless like articles and stuff, but also I haven't found videos of him just purely like talking to a camera or to a mic or being asked questions and such. So that was interesting. I was unsure of how that was going to go.
Humble guy,
humble, funny guy, which I love. We talked a lot about that, having me being a silly guy as well, and being throughout my life being in a kind of tough spot where I wasn't sure if I should tone down my silliness and like go full corporate and just be like a mature, responsible adult, or if I could keep the silliness going and also mix the two things together, you know, like you can be silly and serious at the same time.
Totally.
And being at the warehouse, it's always like that. It's like the silly, serious, just like in a constant dance.
Well, it's like if you let your silliness prevent you from being serious, it's not
That's a
ideal.
problem,
But
yeah.
if you prevent your seriousness from being silly, then that's also a problem. So I think
agree.
finding a way to balance it is like probably the
Best.
move.
The
Yeah.
best. Yeah. I have met some people that are so serious that they're never silly.
I know.
And it's hard. It's hard for me to kind of find common ground sometimes in that regard where I feel like I'm not meeting the true person.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, let's put the wall a little more down right now. You know?
Yeah, let's have fun.
Yeah, let's have fun. Let's
Yeah.
just have a fun, casual conversation. But a little bit about the title of this podcast and this idea. Podcasting sounds like not the right term for it, but I call it a space for conversations with people shaping specialty coffee.
Cool.
And then just kind of taking that conversation wherever it goes. David once told me that he had some sort of team meetings, like weekly or monthly, that they would call "What's in your cup?" They would kind of get together and ask literally "What's in your cup?" as in like, what are you drinking?
Yeah,
But
what are you
also-
liking? What are you not liking about it? You know?
Yeah, but also what's in your life cup? You know, like what's going on with you? You know,
Oh,
like
I
where
like
are
it.
you at? So that's a little bit of the reason to that. So to start it off, what's in your cup?
What's in my cup in
Yeah.
life?
I don't know. In life and
Wow.
living
That's a good question. I
within
think.
yourself.
Are we recording?
Yeah.
Oh, sick. I didn't even know.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
You don't
it
even
is.
know.
It is. It is. I would say, like, you know, Alana and I are navigating her being in school full time. I think that's been a difference in our cups lately, just kind of supporting each other through that and kind of adjusting like our schedules and how we just kind of make both our schedules work and trying to balance life and work from that perspective.
Right.
You know, it's a pretty intense program she's in right now. So
Dental. is
dental
it?
hygiene, yeah. I was her patient yesterday.
Oh, how did that
Yeah,
go?
it was great. It's cool to see her kind of growing in that way. And I think, you know, as individuals, like we both just want to cheer each other on. So
that's amazing.
she listens to all my, you know, things going on with work. I listen to her and like what she's learning in school. I know like all these new terms and
Yeah.
oral health and it all starts in your mouth. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of been life lately. I lost my dog a couple
Oh,
months ago,
man,
and that
I'm
was
sorry
kind of
about that.
yeah, it was a season that I'll, you know, look back on and always be like grateful that I had like a work from home job and
Yeah.
we could spend like majority of our days together, but at the
Right.
same time it was the longest goodbye. And so that was like,
Yeah. Dragged
Kind
on
of-
for a minute.
you know, it just kind of was like bringing down the mood a little bit. So in some ways, it's a little freeing to be out of that, but
Yeah.
I still
But
get
also
emotional
heavy.
about it.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. No, I agree. I have 2 dogs, and one of them I've had for her entire life, 4 years now. And Paulina, my partner, wasn't a dog person before. She was a cat person. And she had never owned a pet kind of like long term. And even though my dog is perfectly healthy, I spend time actively grieving and preparing myself for the moment that my dog is gonna die. And Paulina's like, okay, oh my gosh, shut up. Like, why are
Yeah.
you doing this? You know, I'm like, because you have no idea how much it hurts. Like, I feel like if
Yeah.
you're not constantly conscious and grateful for their presence while they're here,
Yeah.
it just hits so much harder the moment that they're gone, you know?
It's a big responsibility, I think, you know, having gotten her in like my mid-20s and growing in life with her. Like she was kind of the reflection of myself in so many ways. So it's a beautiful thing to kind of see, you know, and give an animal the best life.
Yeah.
I got her when she was, you know, a mama dog. She'd just given birth. She was at a boxer rescue. So it was like, you know, she was the one nobody wanted. And I was like, she's perfect.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I think having the dog, my whole life I wanted a dog. And I had a dog. I had 2 dogs before.
Yeah.
But they were always like so locked in on other people that I was like, oh, it's not my dog.
Yeah.
This one was finally like the one that was
Your
like,
dog.
I walked in the room and it was like,
boom.
Yeah,
Giving her
locked,
life
yeah.
every time.
So it's hard now that I still have my other dog to kind of be like, but I'm missing my one,
Yeah.
you know?
Not to say it's not the
Yeah.
same, but it's kind of not the same.
And I
Sometimes
feel-
just a little bit.
Yeah, I feel bad for him that he's, you know, maybe feeling like second fiddle, but we're leaning on each other. So
Yeah.
that's where we're at.
Is your second dog a lot more so?
Alana's dog,
Okay.
yeah.
I see. I fear that's what's going to happen with my situation now because I have 2 dogs and one of them I adopted about a year ago now. Smaller Chihuahua Terrier mix, kind of. Those dogs tend to choose a person.
Yep.
And it's just like very much their person. I feel like even more so than kind of the bigger dogs that are just looping and playing
Super
around
happy
the
to
house.
see everyone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sort of vibe. So Guapo, the smaller dog, chose Paulina as her person, right? And
That's
Guapo,
cool.
yeah, it's cool. That's what got her into dogs, actually.
Like being chosen.
Being chosen. Yeah, when she had a dog of her own. Because Paulina was second fiddle for my dog and I, you know, she was just kind of like the replacement human, so to speak. So she didn't appreciate the vast amount of love and obsession and joy that a dog gives you when you're their person only. But Guapo is, the estimate is like about 1.5 or 2 years, whereas Lily is 4, going on 5 this upcoming year. So unless something unexpected happens.
You got a little bit of time.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
You got him at the right time.
Yeah, I got him at the right time.
Aww.
And having 2 dogs is the best. I mean, this is not to say that this is a show or podcast about coffee, it's just about life and general things, right? So that's where we're talking about dogs, but having 2 dogs is great. I every time I see them horse around the entire house, which is for most of the day, I can't help but think to myself how much time my first dog spent on their own.
I know.
And that just makes me so, and I know my first dog doesn't even think about that, you know? It's like, no, it's not like they have a past memory and a future sense and stuff, but yeah, it's just like every time that they're alone or if we're in the room and they're over here, they're just horsing around everywhere. Whereas before, she was just kind of sitting there just looking at the window.
Waiting on you.
Waiting on me.
I know.
Just so heartbreaking.
That's my guy right now.
Yeah.
Waiting on me.
Yeah. Are you thinking of getting another?
I think eventually, yeah. I think right now we're pausing that decision just because with Alana in school, introducing a new member of the family is kind of, it's a lot when I'm traveling a little bit, you know, so.
Yeah, especially the whole process of onboarding a new dog.
Yeah, getting it used to your routines and
your commands and your way of life. It's a lot. Yeah, I got lucky. I got my dog kind of during the pandemic era-ish, my first dog.
Oh, yeah.
So I just
you got to be like 100%.
Yeah, and she's a border collie, so she was a lot. She's still a lot, but even more so back then. She was just so intense about everything. I don't think I could have, there's no way I could do it now, honestly. Like onboarding a puppy. Oh my gosh.
I know.
They'd chew up through all my coffee bags and fuck up my scale and you know, like just crazy destruction all over the place, which is wild. Tell me a little bit about what you do in the coffee industry right now in your life.
I love what I do. I get to essentially like connect coffee to roasters. I work at an importing company, and really my day-to-day is like, it's different, you know? It's releases, sending samples, it's making projections and talking about planning, like it's talking about profiles, it's relationship building with roasters and, you know, clients. It's talking with the team, like kind of just getting a grasp on each harvest. Right now we're in the Central's harvest and that's kind of wrapping up. But, you know, the last few years have been so volatile and we're kind of hitting a point where people are a little bit fatigued and maybe unsure of like, you know, how urgent, should they be patient? Because everyone's kind of, you know, in some ways navigating this blind. We really don't know what's going to happen next. So it's important now more than ever to kind of just be, you know, making the decision right and not making, you know, the right decision. In terms of how you're kind of planning. But I think it's a hard question to answer.
I know.
But I think having spent much of my time in retail and roasting and wholesale, I have a good understanding of, what is important and valuable to people. And I think that should just continue.
Yeah.
If you as a roaster are really like carving out your niche in certain ways of, I have these coffees, I have this profile, I have this quality level, getting comfortable maintaining that in a different price structure is just, what you need to bring your customers into.
Yeah.
So it's those conversations right now, mainly.
Right.
Yeah.
What is it that is making it so volatile in general, right now, in the past?
I think it's a lot of the C market. Climate change is affecting volumes. Of course, fuel prices, financing is, those interest rates affect everything. So all of that kind of in tandem. Yeah. Also, people speculating the market has an effect on it. So it's a lot of that.
Yeah.
Supply and demand, global crisis, and now with the war in Iran, it's another layer to it. We'll certainly see some effects of that in the coming months or even weeks.
Yeah.
So
that's a lot to take care of that I feel like a lot of coffee consumers don't even imagine that exists. And at least for me, before I was in coffee, more involved and working in the industry, I never, ever gave that even a remote thought. Coffee was just a thing that would, I don't know where it's the bag says they get it from Colombia, but it's just pops up
somehow it's in my hands,
Yeah.
Imagine it has to get on a boat it has to get on a truck or a horse and get into a container and then get on the water.
And living through all of that process, and I really never thought about it. I feel like even still when I started at Press and now to go to the warehouse, I didn't become aware of the fact that there's a lot to it and a lot of work to be done in that regard until I started hearing your conversations and David's conversations and hearing a little bit about Curtis's decisions, what influences the decision on buying this or buying that. So there's a lot to it, it sounds like, honestly.
It's a lot now that I can kind of see the back end of everything, it's every single bag has to get loaded in and out of a warehouse. It has to go on a pallet, things like that, we just don't really talk about but that's also somewhat agriculture, right? How do we get pineapples from across the world without them fermenting on a ship? All of those things have to happen,
Yeah.
And it's the people behind the scenes that understand the timelines and the quality levels and all of the things that make it happen. It doesn't happen by accident. It's all very intentional. And, I think we have to continue to treat it for what it is. There's a difference, I think, in, commercial grade coffee and expectations and specialty. And I think making sure that those expectations align are really important now. So.
No doubt. You were telling me a little bit about how hard it's been lately to kind of get some coffees released and having unexpected delays that don't really depend on you and all these different external factors that can influence this long chain, right? Is there anything that you feel would be a positive change in that? If you had one wish or a couple of wishes to say, I just wish that would be better, or that system or that way of handing off goods and transportation, et cetera, what would that be for you? Your one wish, so to speak.
I don't think it's necessarily a wish. I think it's more of what could help is maybe just, better planning. I think that's what communication and planning are the two biggest things in green buying and making sure that you're covered in your volumes and how fast you're going to move through coffee. And some of it is guesswork, right? Some of it is you don't know how popular a coffee is going to be, right? Or you don't know how slow a coffee is going to be moving on your shelf. And it is about tracking data. And it's about understanding how you can, pivot if you need to, how you can plan for your cash flow. I think those things help navigate risk in a market like now and in any unforeseen logistics challenges. So yeah, I would say like the more that clients sit down and really understand like, 10 bags is needed for this, and that's going to take me, it's a lot of mental math. It's a lot of mental labor to do it, but it just sets you up for more success and like less risk.
Right. Are there tools nowadays that can, being created in that industry to kind of help aid that, or how does that work? Is there like innovation in that regard coming up?
Yeah, thankfully, different software programs like Cropster is really good for that, and even just creating your own spreadsheets and. Some people love just a pen and paper. No matter what you do, it's just understanding what the data means and how to just plan accordingly. It's the same way as like a cafe manager has to have cups and has to navigate I go through 2 sleeves of this cup every single day. I go through this amount of sugar packets every week. All of those things are kind of
can be translated.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's just the responsibility of the green buyer,
Gotcha. The green buyer. Yeah. So in this case, yourself, a little bit of that, helping your clients do that, or is it really just purely the roasters keeping track of that? Like where's that line kind of drawn where you're saying, you could say roaster not having the coffee they need is the roaster's fault because of a lack of planification and communication, whereas roaster not having the coffee they need is in part the blame maybe of somebody like you. Does that make sense?
I think like it really depends on the relationship. Like if you utilize like my essential like services for maybe like one SKU, then you probably don't talk to me as much about like how often you go through it. You probably just hit me up once a year for the one thing that you buy from me. But there are some people that I work more closely with, and they have like 4 or 5 different coffees with me. So then it is like, hey, I noticed you're running through this pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I see that this coffee is not going to be here until this date. Do you maybe need this instead? So there are definitely circumstances where I try to just be as supportive as I can and kind of catch that before it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
But it really depends on the needs of the client, you know? So that's, I think what makes it cool is that I can kind of work in different ways and be flexible and just be like open to like, hey, I have it or I don't, or you have it or you don't. So
it seems like a lot to juggle with, honestly. And this is all very illuminating for me because I know very little about this entire process in the sense of what exactly a person like you does. And I always ask this question to my friends that do like finance, for example, like on some other thing in life. And I'm particularly appalled by sometimes the finance people where I can ask the question, so what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm in finance. I'm like, I get it. But like, what do you do? It's like, I work for a finance company. Like, no, man, like on a daily, like I'm a barista. What do? I have to dial in the shots of espresso. I have to tamp them. I have to distribute them. I have to pull them. I have to steam milk. Like exactly like, what do you do paper-wise, is the question. So I feel like you're answering a lot of that for me that is kind of filling the gaps in my knowledge, which is really cool. And it sounds like you're both kind of dealing a little bit with customer service.
Totally.
But at the same time with a relationship that goes a bit beyond that, where it's like you're the person that's applying this and you can maybe step away a little bit depending on the client, but at the same time be more involved depending on the client and make some suggestions and saying like, I see this prediction for the future, maybe watch out for this, or like let's add this other suggestion. That's a lot of the roaster's success can sometimes depend on what you do. I mean, to a degree, right? Depending on how they're taking it and how they're managing things and how good they are at that, right?
Totally. And I think the size of the client also is dependent on how much they rely on one importer versus having like a few.
Right.
It just really depends. And so I think being open to understanding like the needs and also knowing how you can fit in to those needs is like really like what it's about, and just trying to be open in all that, you know, is possible in that way. So yeah, there's some times where it's like I can't do, you know, I can't find the price point and the right time and the right quality level that you need. Sometimes I can. Sometimes there's, you know, a middle ground to be had. So it's also, I think, coming from like the cafe setting and really kind of spending a lot of time tasting and talking about coffee and learning all that goes into, you know, processing and milling and roasting, like all of those things add up to the conversations I get to have.
Absolutely.
So that shapes the background from being more of like, oh, this is just sales, to understanding like the needs of the industry. And I think that's what excites me most about taking my previous experience and kind of bringing it into this role. And I'm not just somebody that spits out a number and says, this is how much it costs, this is when it's going to get here. Like that to me is like too flat, too boring. And it's more about like, hey, I know you're really into this origin. We're doing some cool things. Like I met a producer and they're, you know, working really hard with the local community to kind of do X, Y, and Z, and having those conversations more frequently, I think it just propels like what makes specialty special. Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
I mean, you have to. Like, I think if you're not advocating for what's going on at origin, what you're seeing on like a quality level or even just a social impact level, it doesn't kind of land. You know, if people don't feel excited about what they're serving, then customers won't feel it. It doesn't translate. You know, there's a lot of storytelling in coffee, and I think on the specialty end, that's how we differentiate ourselves from commercial, right? Like there's almost no traceability on commercial grade coffee. And sometimes that's okay for those clients. But a lot of the small businesses, a lot of the micro roasters, those storytelling abilities, those traceability and like quality levels have to all align.
So it's like that's the product itself, you know, and I really love that for specialty coffee as an industry. And I talked a little bit about this with David and Curtis, and I feel like I'll just keep mentioning it every time, because if you were to take any other industry as an example, like the big metal industry perhaps, which I know nothing about and I'd be totally wrong, but for example's sake, the people involved in the buying and selling of metals at some point stopped caring about the social impact that their work was doing. Whereas I feel like specialty coffee, everybody that I meet, like all you guys and stuff, it seems like it's at the forefront of the buying and selling process, which I love. It's a little bit like, I feel like you guys have made a really good job at keeping out the bad apples that don't seem to care about that sort of thing. And the whole industry cares about that and propels that part of the story and says like, no, this is what's most important. This is what it's about constantly, which ends up making it like trickles down into making a huge social impact, which I think is great. Honestly. It's a really cool part of it.
It's like something that you can't ignore, I think, when you really understand what happens and how many people are involved. It's like, you know, their work is valuable all along the supply chain, you know, and I think when we really understand that and value it, then it's a success for everyone involved. You know, if you try to, you know, undercut value in the supply chain, it just doesn't, it's not sustainable and it's not consistent and it doesn't really align with the values that we're projecting in specialty. So there's a lot of layers to it. I think, you know, that's certainly like we can go down every rabbit hole there, but you know, in broad strokes, I think that when we are able to see the value in the work and how much care actually goes into sorting and processing and everything being right, there has to be value to that. And your customers have to understand that value. And it is the job of the roasters, the cafe owners, the baristas to you know, really explain that value
Yeah.
in their work too, right? So
I see that a lot right now in my role as trainer, that I get to onboard new coming baristas, and some have different varying levels of experience and awareness about the whole entire process. But for the most part, even those that I've trained that have had previous experience, I can see their face kind of have an aha moment when I start talking about, yes, the entirety of this process, from growing it, taking care of it, picking it, processing it, milling it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But on top of that, the main focus is the amount of effort that has gone into every single part of this chain. It's like a long chain of efforts that is being made, even after it's exported, for it to get here and for it to get sold and picked by a certain roaster and then roasted, which entails a different effort. And I see the barista being as kind of the last one in the chain.
totally.
You know?
I mean, if you're not weighing, or if you're not paying attention, if you're not tasting, if you're careless in your preparation, all of that
kind of
is going to be, even if you're like nice, you know,
Yeah.
versus, you know, dismissive of the person
Sure.
that you're serving, I think it just tastes better when, you know, you're having a good time and
No doubt.
you're approached with a level of hospitality that is respectful and kind. I think just being kind goes so long, so far in specialty.
100%.
In cafes.
Yeah. In cafes, I see it a lot with the baristas where I perhaps my bit of training that goes on about the different processes and all this can get a little tedious or overwhelming at some point. And I always make sure to stop myself before it gets too like nerdy or too kind of like jot down notes and write it down.
Yeah.
And mention why we're viewing this. You know, we are kind of learning about this for you to be able to understand why a certain coffee tastes a certain way, and also how to dial it in or kind of understand how it might behave and understand that aspect of it. But beyond all that, beyond the taste, it's for you to understand the sheer amount of effort that got put into this, and now it's up to you to put the same amount of effort to do it justice. I say, you know, do this coffee that we have here justice, and explain that to the customers as well. Kind of like be teaming with the sensation of saying, I want more people to know about this, which is really rewarding when you see it at a coffee shop. I'm at Mercado, so we get a lot of kind of like the older generation, older folks that sometimes aren't as exposed to the whole entire process, and they tend to be overwhelmed when they see the variety of bags and colors and tasting notes and such. And I love giving them an aha moment where they arrive almost completely unwilling to learn and accept that this is a different sort of product that you might have not been exposed to, and there's a lot to it. But then I love seeing that as soon as they taste it, their brain just goes, oh, yeah.
That's like a fun thing of like,
I love that.
even just giving somebody like a well-made beverage,
Yeah.
regardless of like, you know, I don't drink milk-based beverages often,
Yeah.
you know, but I love creating them. Like I
Right.
love building them.
Yeah.
And I think the customers that enjoy those are just as important as the customers that are into like black coffee.
Yeah.
You know, and
Sure.
I think just being open to like serving somebody something delicious and not trying to like curb what they like
Yeah.
is important too.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's, you know, we're seeing a huge movement with like matcha and cold foam, and I think people get a little bit bummed out sometimes about like only serving that. And
Yeah.
it's like, I feel like that's the Frappuccino of like right now.
Yeah.
And, you know, some places used to serve Frappuccinos, some never did. And
Right.
that's your decision as a business owner, whether
Yeah.
or not you want to
Get on that
attract
train.
a wider audience. And so I think, you know, right now, the more you can add to your menu is a little bit safer for, you know,
From a business standpoint.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, no,
Because it's
definitely.
when rents go up, when
It's about
financing,
survivability at
yeah.
some point, you know, and I can totally understand that. And if that it can be a door to getting a customer in, and then also taking that opportunity now that they're through the door to slowly reel them in to what it's all about, like in the greater scheme of things, and great, you know. I've had customers go from a nice vanilla latte extra sweet to a little less sweet, no sweetener, and then what's a cortado? That part.
They're like, oh, let me try something new. Like, what do you like? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and being kind and welcoming kind of leads towards them feeling a little bit more open and willing to try more things and willing to be informed. And if I can get a customer asking why, then I know I'm succeeding. It's like, why does it taste this way? Ooh, and then go down that rabbit hole.
Well, it's also like even thinking like more broadly in like spaces that serve other beverages, right? Like natural wine bars, tap rooms, bars, like having diversity in like even your like NA beverages, is more popular now. You're attracting a wider audience because at some point people want to be social. People want an experience. People want to be out and about and like enjoying life. And I think when you can tap into that, it's a good environment, regardless of the beverage.
Yeah, cultivating that environment seems so hard because there's so many steps along the way in the process to kind of get to having that environment at your business. And you can come at it from a barista standpoint, from a general manager standpoint, from a roaster standpoint, and then eventually get to kind of importing. And like we were mentioning a little earlier before, I had no idea that being an importer in the coffee industry even existed as a role.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then also when I asked you right now, are there tools being developed to track this part of the process a little bit better? And the answer was yes. I can't even begin to imagine the amount of roles that you can have just within the coffee industry, not necessarily dealing hand to hand with the bean itself, just like creating
logistics, QC, marketing. Yeah, like all those roles are like integral. And I think that's what you'll see like next month at World of Coffee.
Yeah.
Like there are, equipment reps and techs and everyone in between, like people that are just obsessed, or even coffee adjacent, right? Like alternative milk brands or I'm trying to think of some others.
Gear. I'm excited for the World of Coffee. Talking about the SEA, it's going to be my first SEA, and Curtis says it, David says it, that it's just going to change the way I see things because of the vast amount of expressions in the industry that I'll see in one place, and I'm super excited for it. Like we were saying, people that might have developed a roaster tool or a logistics tool or gear or a new method, and it's just endless, and I'm super, super psyched for it. But all of that was really to ask you, how did you start in coffee to begin with? How did you get here, Because it seems like It's
a very silly story. I graduated art school in 2012, and I had, for the last 6 months of college, I was I tried to diversify myself. I did photography, graphic design, painting, illustration. I really tried to kind of be more of a jack of all trades and kind of find jobs. I think post 2008, the job market was really difficult. And so I realized really quickly, I just needed to get a job. It really didn't matter because bills were coming in and student loans were
Sure, you just
ready.
had to take care of it.
Yeah, so at the time, I had gotten a part-time job. Right out of college, I was working at a summer camp, and I was a pool director and kind of was more in the aquatics kind of world.
Cool.
And that was pretty safe for
So coffee wasn't even really on your radar, right?
Never,
right.
no. I mean, at that point, I was still drinking the cheapest breakfast blend, putting hazelnut creamer in it. It was just cheap, right?
Yeah.
But I was starting to drink it in college just to kind of get through what I needed to. And then I realized after that summer camp ended, I went into a lifeguarding role that was, it was paying $10 an hour, 25 hours a week. And I was I can't even afford a 6-pack of beer on the weekends. This is just not sustainable.
Scraping by, literally.
Yeah, so I was just...
Was that at the beach at least?
No. I wish. This is on the East Coast, Western Massachusetts, and I was just trying to figure out like what I could do. So I took like a serve safe course to try to be a bartender, but then like I looked on Craigslist for like any hospitality jobs. I'd worked in like a few bakeries, you know, in high school and had like customer service experience, and you know, the job listing wasn't even really like forthcoming, like this is specialty, this is like, you know, really serious. I was just like, oh, cafe job, okay.
Yeah.
So I was late to the interview, and, you know, they were very serious, and I was like, oh, you know.
That was different.
That was different. And the first day that we were training, I was drinking espresso, macchiato, cappuccino, and I was like, oh my God, like I really need to go to the bathroom. You know, I'm not used to drinking stuff like this.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it at the time. I was like, wow, this is like really bitter, you know? But as soon as I got really into that role, I fell in love with it and was still working 2 jobs, like 25 hours a week at lifeguarding in the afternoons and waking up and going to the cafe 35 hours a week. You know, it was a time, but I just needed to hustle. And I remember kind of interviewing for an upper like aquatics position at the YMCA that I was working at. And I thought to myself, I was like, but if I take that job, then I will never get to work on this Synesso ever again. Ooh. And I was just like, I can't.
Okay.
So it was that machine that kind of like, it held me there, and I really loved it. But I also
grew to love the position as well, because you didn't want to stop working there, really. You know, you didn't want to stop being in coffee by that point.
At that point, like being a lifeguard as like a job was just like the most depressing thing. I felt like I was just sitting watching other people live their lives, and I wasn't interacting at all in like the world. And that was like really, I remember like going to that interview, and I was like, I need to be around people. I need to be involved in like something.
That is such a profound reflection for a job that I just hadn't considered that you can get that from a lifeguard job. And it makes total sense, because you're just sitting there literally watching other people live their lives.
Yeah.
And that hurts.
And the only time I get to interact is to tell you to stop running. And that is not a good feeling.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that was just like kind of the pivotal moment of like, I really like customer service. I really like interacting. And like, I felt like it was a cool time in coffee. This is still 2012, 2013. You know, there was a lot of influence of like Seattle style coffee and like wet cappuccinos that were kind of beginning to come across the East Coast, you know, just different styles. I was asked all the time for like a dry cappuccino. We didn't do them. And, you know, that blew people's minds, you know. Right. And I think from there, I worked at that job 2 years, and then I moved to the West Coast and really got involved in like the Southern California community, and was competing and judging and just immersing myself in coffee, and just was around like so many people that, you know, really just loved it. And I think that's what you'll see at World of Coffee, is just that shared experience of like, we all love the same thing, and where we live, things are different. City to city, like the trends are all kind of unique, like. And that's what's cool, to kind of like have conversations around that. Like, oh, like, what do you guys like? You know, what do you do here? How do you do this? Or I do that. Like, all that information sharing is like what's really fun and exciting. And I think that's just in a post-pandemic world in coffee, it's just, you know, remembering like why the thing that we like is so special. And I think from 2012 to now, I still look to be open to new information and to always be having conversations that tell me new things about what is important and what is not. And I think that's what's kind of cool now is that,
I love that.
in social media, everyone's trying to be an influencer. Cafes are, just trying to survive. Like, there's so much that is just constantly happening in the world. But at the same time, like, we just need to slow it down.
Yeah.
We need to stop fighting like this rush for like
constant rush.
Just being fast and getting out volume. And I think just making it make sense is important. I think slowing down, being intentional, not reacting,
absolutely,
planning, is like those like more boring things. I think will be like
needed.
Where we need to go.
That's really cool that after all this time, you still have that perspective of wanting to stay fresh, basically, on what's going around and new.
It's always changing.
I always say that it's like always changing, and the way we extract the coffee today might be completely different, literally tomorrow, based on a single video that somebody figured out a specific way of doing it, and that changes the flavor profile that people like and are agreeable towards and such. Maybe like the soup example that's going around right now. Like there's always constant new evolving information. Even I feel like people's palate change in a matter of weeks, really, kind of like what they tend to like. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of that because you went from not having a palate at all for coffee and working a lifeguard job to working at coffee and at first not having an appreciation for it, which happens to all of us. And then when was the moment that clicked for you, where that palate changed, where you're like your appreciation for coffee?
I think it was still very early, like at that first job, like being able to like back off of like cream and sugar, and kind of having that experience. But I think I remember like asking the owner of that shop, who also owned like a bar at the same, like he had like a cocktail bar.
Cool.
And I was like, well, what do you like more? Do you like serving coffee more? Do you like serving cocktails more? And his response was just still stays with me. And it was like, giving somebody a cup of coffee in the morning is probably one of the most wholesome things that you can do. And there is nothing that can really touch that. You're starting somebody in the beginning of their day. You're going to shape the rest of their day. Alcohol is kind of like you're kind of repairing the day, and you're making up for maybe all the stresses of the day. And it's a different experience, and both are uniquely important to people. But I think for me, I value and appreciate that first interaction.
Absolutely. Because the second one, the last one of the day, kind of already carries a negative connotation with it.
It can,
coming into the interaction. And the alcohol might not really make it better. You know what I mean? Whereas a cup of coffee, most clients that I see day to day in the morning, it's so true. They might come in groggy, kind of not feeling so great, and as soon as they get their drink, they're already feeling a little bit better.
Yeah.
So that does carry a special moment.
I think sometimes coffee can be like really healing, and I think going to a cafe, like the crazy thing has been watching the commuter traffic kind of change. Before it was like there were so many people that would come before 7 a.m. on their way to work. And now there's a lot more remote jobs. There's a lot less time to and people are making coffee at home more. So that kind of section of commuter customer base, I think, is in certain cities and in certain cafes is almost gone.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of interesting to be like, oh, this isn't part of the routine anymore.
Right.
So then where do we find the time? Where do we want coffee to be?
Sure.
Is it the afternoon? Is it night? Is it the weekend? And that kind of shapes how we have to adapt.
Yeah. And it shapes the kind of overall purpose of the space that you're providing for the customers. I see it in Mexico, actually. Whenever I visit my family over there in Sonora, which is a neighboring state, and when I started visiting Paulina's family, they live in Hermosillo, which is the capital of Sonora, and they're not into coffee. So whenever I'm at their house, I don't do this anymore because now I figured it out, but I would say I'm gonna get up extra early, like at 6, because I wanna like get ready and have breakfast and then go out to a coffee shop, get my cup of coffee in because I didn't bring any with me. And then be back by like 8, right, was my plan. So the first couple of times I would like woke up super early and I wanted to try more coffee, and I even went to one of the coffee shops and it was just closed at 7. And I was like, it's 7, where are you guys at? You know, like I'm at the shop at 5:30, where are you guys at right now? What's going on? And then I would message my barista friends like, hey, are you guys opening today? Because I'm here. And they were like, oh yeah, we open at 9 a.m. I was like, shoot, 9 a.m. is so late. And I'm like, well, you guys open at 9 and close at 4? Because that's what, well, we open at 7 and we close at 4 at Barista. Right. So I just figured. I was like, so you guys have such a short operating window, you know?
It's a little late.
Yeah. And they were like, no, we close at 9 p.m. Who is having coffee at 9?
You'd be surprised, students.
100%. Yeah. And also the dynamic for why people consume coffee, at least in Hermosillo, just seems to be different because, like you were mentioning, it's more about having a space for being around other humans and talking and taking your family there to just grab a bite and get a cup of coffee late at night after work rather than getting powered up for your day early on, which I don't know if the pandemic did that or it was like that before the pandemic in Hermosillo, but it's a big shift.
It's a big shift. I feel like for me, having been behind bar for so long.
How many years were you a barista?
I was probably a barista for 12, 10, 12 years solidly, yeah.
Wow.
You know, like towards the tail end, it was more like to cover, you know, but yeah, probably at least 10 solid years. Wow. And it was amazing. I think like that was the most fun and joy was getting to like make drinks and like talk to people and see so many people in a day.
So many people.
So much fun, jamming out to music, you know, that was the best.
It's like a fun job.
Yeah. But then my consumption from I'm slamming espresso first thing in the morning, I'm maybe having a sip of something just to taste, never being able to like sit down and enjoy a cup. I mean, I felt like I was just tasting coffee all the time. Now I actually get to sit with a cup and I'm like, this is the best.
Enjoying this time.
Yeah, so I still like make so much more time for that. And I think I do enjoy being able to enjoy coffee at home.
Yeah.
I think for me that will always be how I relate to coffee. And I think when people still make coffee for that consumer, I think it's special, you know?
Yeah.
People don't always have access to go to a cafe every day.
Right.
And they still want to enjoy that specialty experience and have a nice cup and also nerd out at home. Or not even nerd out, but like prepare it for themselves. Like I think it's self-care in some ways, you know, like
I agree.
Making a coffee for yourself, slowing down. Like some people can't imagine it.
Right.
You know, I have friends, family, they can't imagine taking the time to boil water and pour it over ground.
Most of my family, yeah.
And that's fine for them, but I enjoy it. It's the same with food.
Yeah.
Some people never want to sit down and make a dish.
Yeah. Or be sitting at a table long after the plates are done.
Yeah.
You know, just be sitting there mingling, talking over the food or over life or whatever, you know.
But I think like romanticizing like your coffee and your food and enjoying life, like that's all really I want to be doing, you know.
Yeah. And the coffee is great. The coffee is very special, but it's the moment that makes it all so special. Like the moment that you dedicated in your life to make that cup of coffee or to sit down and enjoy it, that just makes it feel so much more special as well.
Yeah.
Because behind the bar, you know, the classic, you have it dialed in, you're like, okay, now I'm gonna have mine, right? My drink of the day. And as soon as you pour your own drink.
Oh, somebody's walking in.
Hey, good morning. How's it going? What can I get for you today? You know, every single time. And I've had so many cortados.
And you're watching it and it's
just like getting clumpy and die. Every time I'm excited about having some sort of drink at the shop and having my little moment to do so, I get the first customer every single time. Or if it's dead and I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I should be good. I can make my drink. I can have it. I'm going to pound it in a couple sips. Every single time. You kind of eliminate that the reason why everybody else is there, which is to have their moment and enjoying the cup. You get to kind of modify that and do it in a different way, which is like tasting it and making sure you can give that experience to others, but you kind of lose out on having that experience yourself.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes, even when I open, I've been waking up earlier just so I can sneak in a pour over before my open, because I want to have that moment of geeking out with the coffee and trying something new that I like saw online the day before or whatever.
Cool.
And then enjoying it and just taking my time with it. But I recently went to a matcha documentary.
Oh, sick.
That was aired here in town.
Nice.
Yeah. And as soon as that was announced with the flyer and everything and the people involved, I was like, okay, I got to go to this, because they made a whole documentary about matcha. And I instantly thought, I'm sure it's going to be really similar to what I'm doing already, right? Growing, farms, sourcing, etc. But with the added cultural background of Japan and the spirituality that it carries with it. I kind of had a sense for that. I just didn't know how deep it was going to be until I watched the documentary, where the act of making matcha in the moment was so curated and so perfected and so respected, and it carried so much Zen along with it, and it was tied to spirituality in so many ways, and matcha being a tea and tea being probably the oldest beverage in humankind ever. That was kind of in the documentary as well, where it all hit me in a way that I, got an even deeper appreciation for something I already recognize in my own life with coffee. But it also made me think of how people seem to be more accepting or less reluctant to apply that to matcha or tea, whereas in coffee, not so much yet. I mean, universally, sure, in our end of the industry, there's a lot of people that understand the thing, and that's why we're in it, right? But like you're saying, a lot of people don't even seem to find the time to do that, like pouring hot water over grounds. It's like, why would you do that, And
they're grinding it fresh.
I know. And you're hand grinding it like all the time, all these questions multiple times a day. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes, 3. But it seems that there's industries where people are much more willing to accept that level of specialty in general than in coffee. And it's making strides, of course, and it's getting a lot better as specialty coffee is just becoming more and more popular too, I feel like.
Totally.
But I still see it day to day where if I get somebody from the older generation in the shop and they're kind of reluctant in general, the moment I say, well, we see similar things in wine, and do you like wine? And they're like, oh yeah, I love wine. I know all my wines. And I'm like, oh, well, this is pretty similar to that in the same way there's different processes and different origins and different tasting notes, so it's very similar. And still I'm seeing them go, I never expected that. And I'm like, well, you're a wine drinker and you can appreciate wine. That's interesting to see why that didn't quite translate yet for you into coffee. But I'm glad I'm the one that can have it click for you right now,
I think meeting people where they're at is the only way that we're going to be able to share like a common ground in this industry. Sure. It's not about where you started or where you're at with your preferences. It's just like, hey, this is what's happening over here. This is what's happening over there. Where do you really want to be? You know? And I think everyone has their own preferences. And I feel like I never want to dismiss somebody's enjoyment of the beverage. Right. So it's kind of like, how do we welcome them in?
Absolutely.
And just be understanding that, some people just don't even know that coffee comes on a fruit.
Right.
And is the seed of a fruit.
Yeah.
And so like, it's cool when you get to have that conversation and be the one to bring people in, but we have to always do it in a way that's like, it's not about, I know something that you don't. Yeah. It's about, hey, I really love this thing and I want to share it with you.
Yeah.
Because
100%.
that's what it is.
100%.
We all love it.
100%.
And I think, when people get competitive in the industry, I think that's like when we lose a sense of that love, right? Like when it's about, they're not doing this well, they're doing this badly, they don't like this, they do this way, I'm the best, I do it the best. It just it's not good for the industry. No. Not everyone can be everywhere all the time and do everything for everyone. So we should just in my opinion, be welcoming of competition, be welcoming of like each other, and just embrace it. You know, we are all helping people discover their love for specialty coffee at the end of the day. And so we have to celebrate that and not, you know, I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of competitiveness in like where we all fit in and where we all need to go. And I think if people were just more open, I think they'll see that there's room for everyone. There's room there, you know, you don't need to squish someone down or like, you know, just get in your head about it. I think just from my experience, and I've been in that mindset too, it didn't help. You know, it's not
like
worrying
this mindset
about,
of abundance that is better. Really, at the end of the day, it's like the most beneficial one. And in whatever direction you want to take that, abundance in competition, abundance for everybody, abundance in your product and the quality and et cetera. My hometown is Álamo, Sonora, which is a beautiful like tourist attraction in the state because of its culinary architecture and history and things like that. So it tends to yield a lot of hospitality businesses and a lot of restaurants and stuff like that. And my family has a business there as well. And I grew up noticing that the overall vibe as a business owner in the town was very different than what I'm experiencing now at Presto, which I feel very fortunate for. And it was different in the way that everybody seemed to be competitive in the worst of ways, and also with like a scarcity mentality in the worst of ways, where it's like, we're never giving anything out for free. We're doing exactly what this other competitor is doing because we want to get in on that in the worst of ways. Like, we want to win that market over. And like, nobody gets along with anybody for the most part. Like, you do you, you do you, you do you, and everybody's kind of like holding their guns out like this, kind of just like looking around at each other, right? Even my own family, I would just like hear them talk and be like, oh, that doesn't seem quite as nice as I would want it to, right? And then the answer would always be, well, when you grow up, you'll understand. Where you have a business of your own, you'll understand. And I just took that and saying like, maybe, I guess, you know.
That's some way to see it, for sure.
Yeah, I was like, maybe, but I hope not, you know. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I hope I don't adopt that same vibe, because I wouldn't want to run a business in that way, right? So then working at Presta, I see this constantly giving out products for free, constantly inviting other roasters and other businesses and empowering and talking well about everybody else that's involved, even in such a small town as Tucson. This like kind of love that is going around always, and this lack of throwing shade at people constantly. It's like, it's a beautiful environment for that, which I've grown really appreciative of. And there's also this constant, I guess, abundant mentality to it that is beautiful. And I feel like that leads to growth.
I mean, we're in the desert.
Yeah.
You know, so we're already like
in a tough spot already.
Yeah, like I think, you know, a flower doesn't look to the flower next to it and say like, oh, I'm not as pretty as that flower. A flower just blooms, you know, and you have to be on your own journey, and you have to bloom in your own way, regardless of what's around you.
And the more flowers bloom, the prettier the scenery is at the end of the day. So yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic that, again, I feel like is very well taken care of for the most part in specialty coffee from my perspective, which was what I see. I mean, compared to perhaps like other industries, maybe like the hospitality industry that I got to see in my hometown and some of the restaurants, it's very location dependent. I'm not too into what's like going on in Tucson from a purely business point of view, but maybe I'm just biased because I'm around a particular mentality being at Presta, but it seems to be the norm where like everything is going fairly well and everybody spreads the love as most as they can, which I love that. I think it works really well, you know.
I think, you know, if you were to only have one pizzeria,
right.
you wouldn't be pretty happy with that, right?
Yeah.
Like, what if you didn't like it?
Yeah, and at my hometown, that's the vibe, where it's like, if you open a pizza shop, and then 2 years later, somebody else opens a pizza shop, it's like, I'm never talking to them again.
But also, you
why?
You don't also want pizza every day.
Yeah,
you know, you want to.
There's like different styles of pizza, and maybe they do some things better, and you do other things better, and you're at totally different locations for totally different people, and it's fine. You know, how about you get together and talk about pizza with the other person that opened the shop? It's like, I don't know. You know, it leads to so much more development when you're nice about it. You know.
Yeah.
When you're nice about it, but So in retrospective, what does the Blair timeline look like from like a bird's eye view, right? So you go from art school and then lifeguard and then coffee shop job and then another coffee shop job in the West Coast.
And then Presta.
And then Presta, but also like what happened in the middle to get to what you do now. You see what I mean? To go from barista to...
I think showing up to like a lot of industry events, throwdowns, networking, competitions, all of those things.
You've competed.
Yeah, and I think I'm grateful for that time. I don't have that time and mentality anymore to like continue, but I'm grateful for what that's allowed me to do.
Yeah,
I think also like I've like written articles, I've like been a brand ambassador, I've tried to like do videos and stuff. So it's like there's a lot of gigs that you can kind of get. Like I just taught a home espresso class last week at somebody's home in Scottsdale, and I'm like, great.
Yeah.
You know, and I think being open to just experiencing and for me, I think, I don't know, I could do something different tomorrow. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think just exploring like coffee and growing and networking, like you are a representation of all the experience that you've had. And there's been some jobs that I've had that really haven't been like super fruitful, but it's given me a great perspective and it's given me a great experience. And I've met a lot of people that have shaped where I'm going.
Sure.
So I think everything has a value, whether that's how much you're compensated or whether that's in experience. It's just, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like I have wanted to be working at an importer for years before I even got here. And I think sometimes like I just need to remind myself, like it's not a matter of if, it's just when. So that's...
It's like a stone falling in a river that is going to inevitably reach the bottom of it just by force of gravity. Kind of like, you know, like you're already in this industry and it's not a matter of if, but when.
Yeah.
And you've been a barista, you've been a roaster. Have you been a roaster?
Yeah, I was roasting. Yeah, I was roasting.
For Presta?
Yeah.
Wow, was that your first roasting experience at Presta?
That was my first roasting experience,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, so then barista, roaster.
Wholesale and...
General manager? General manager, wholesale, green coffee.
Yeah, I've done a lot.
Done a lot.
Yeah.
And over the course of so many years, I mean, in coffee, you've been involved, did you say 12 years as a barista or more years involved in coffee? Counting the other
There's been a lot of times where I've had multiple roles, you know, like, and I think I've always kind of been like a little bit of like, I want to do like multiple things all the time because that's my personality.
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe I have ADHD, I don't know. I've never kind of explored that, but I like juggling a few things at once because I can kind of see it. I always have like probably 20 tabs open in my brain. So having like, oh, this is going on over here, like I kind of like that. It keeps me like really interested and you know, more focused on the things and kind of like being able to prioritize things.
And also like involved in what you love, really, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Involved in it in many different ways, right?
Totally. And I think you have to love it to stay in. You have to love it. If you don't love it, there's a million other things that you will find.
Yeah.
You know, but coffee you have to love.
Perhaps if you don't love it, maybe you didn't get it.
Maybe.
You know? Sometimes I feel like that, where it's like if not trying to be overly judgmental, but if I see so many good things in the industry where if somebody gets involved and they don't love it, I'm just like, you didn't love it because you didn't get it. You know, and I understand it's not what I want to do with my whole entire life, and you can pivot and go.
Totally.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But also you can very much carry what you loved about the specialty coffee industry into whatever else you're going to do in life, right? So like if you didn't get the thing, you didn't love it, right? Not because you didn't love it. You're not going to want to move away because you didn't love it. I feel like you're going to want to move away because you didn't get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And also like, I think like, you know, people come from all different like walks of life in this industry. And sometimes, you know, it can't, like, I know some people even that are roasters that's not their 9 to 5. This is their passion project, you know?
Which is crazy. So involved.
Yeah. Like, so I think there's a lid for every pot, you know?
You've seen so many different parts of the industry and you've been involved in so long. I feel like the industry has seen so many different iterations of Blair. How have you changed in coffee?
I think like now I'm more like, I like to observe, I like to listen, and I don't like to like place too much opinion on it. I think like it's nice to be in a spot where I can say like, this was the trend, this is now the trend, this is where I think it's going, but also to be like, it's gonna go where it's gonna go. And other people are influencing it, and I don't need to necessarily be the like one pushing certain things forward, you know? Like, it's kind of cool to just meet the next generation of specialty and see people like, it's cool for me now to see people that I've competed against, that I've like thrown down against, opening shops and being business owners or doing other roles, or, you know, it's cool to follow other people in coffee. It's cool to see their progression too. And I think like, I don't know, I'm less like, I gotta be this, or this. I'm just like, I'm enjoying it. I'm grateful that I get to do this. That I'm still here, that that my role matters. You know, I love that. So for me, I'm content and always learning, but I think, I kind of lost track of your question a little bit.
No, it was how have you changed in coffee? And my follow-up to that was, how has coffee changed you?
I think
two different things, you know? It's like, how have you changed in coffee is you behaving in coffee and involving in it. But at the same time, that process, how has that changed you?
I think like it's pushed me to just focus in different ways on like how I need to like really set myself up for my life, you know, like the things that I want in life, like how can coffee help me achieve those things, and how can I achieve more in coffee to get to where I need to be. So, you know, it's not about making like the most amount of money, but it's about like, how can I keep this going because I really enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, that's good. That's a really fortunate spot to be in, which you've worked so hard for, really. So that's awesome. To be able to do what you love. And
I think like setting like myself up, like I'm always still grinding for it. You know what I mean? Like it's a grind. It definitely, I see so many people like burning themselves at both ends of the candle trying to make it work. And it's like, I want to pull that version of me out, you know? And I think there's been times where I've just done like 10, 12-hour days. I've exhausted myself just pouring myself into it, and I needed to just pour more into my cup. You know, how much of my, you know, balance was off for so long. I think that's the most I can look back on and say, like, maybe I would have done things a little differently. But also, who's to say, like, I would be where I'm at if I didn't do those things. So
definitely,
I think being open to the idea that we're always evolving and we're always changing, and our needs are always changing. And that has to be like fluid through like our careers, you know?
Definitely. And you just went to Origin, right? Did you?
I just went to Costa Rica, last week.
So I'm guessing a lot
sick.
of, how was that?
I've never been to Costa Rica before, so it was awesome to see that Origin. And I think it has such a long history in terms of people's menus and their perception of it. And it's a great profile. I think like super sweet. I think just like sweetness and like levels of intensity in that coffee.
Seemed like a really fun time. I loved all the stories that you posted. I was like involved, and then I was like, oh, what's Blair up to right now?
I think it was cool to see like our lab, because I talked to the sourcing team and everyone that works there all the time, and to meet them and just to kind of like see how they work. It's that shared experience that I think shapes, you know, my conversations now. I think, you know, it's cool to see different cafes. I was able to like go around San Jose and also
that's cool.
to like go to cafes. And I went to, one of the biggest cafes that's on like the top 100 list for the world, like Cafe Oteca, and it's awesome. I'm just really inspired, and like went to a cafe that was like a speakeasy, and like just also like went to a cafe that I've been to in Colombia, and I'm like, oh, you're here too? Like just all of those things are kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I love that element of surprise whenever I go somewhere new.
Yeah. Do they offer, is the way coffee works in Mexico similar to that of Costa Rica? Where like, to my understanding, a lot of the coffee produced in Mexico stays in Mexico.
Somewhat, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Is it the same way in Costa Rica?
I think like we are seeing a lot of local consumption now in producing countries, which is a good thing. Because
why is that a good thing?
It's a good thing because they are not relying on exporting to be their only source of income for coffee.
Gotcha.
For so long, it kind of blew my mind that people weren't even able to taste their own coffee. They weren't able to taste specialty coffee. They were just drinking like Nescafe. And
producing great coffee.
Yeah.
That's wild.
So I think like just the ability to understand specialty and have it in country is incredible for the industry.
Absolutely.
So I think that's a positive thing. Like I went to an exporter that, he's roasting himself and he's selling to grocery stores, and I'm like, great. That you're able to diversify even like your income in that way. Right. And I think that's a very healthy thing. Like I think a lot about like our carbon footprint and like, does coffee need to leave and travel thousands of miles if there's value in it staying? Right. We're the lucky ones that get to afford to bring it in.
No doubt.
And we should always treat it like that, I think.
Doubt.
So.
No doubt.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I didn't have that understanding of Mexico until I got more involved in coffee, and I feel like I'm still kind of understanding how the coffee economy in Mexico works. But when I was living in Mexico, I remember having the best cups of Mexican coffee that I've ever had were in Mexico.
Yeah.
And I've had some good Mexican coffees here, but I've had some over there that were better.
Yeah.
I wonder, does it work the same? Like, why does it work like that? And does it work the same in Costa Rica?
I wonder if it's like freshness too,
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
If you think about the transit time on some of these containers being like 2 to 3 months.
Might be my palate too, because it was a while ago. Might be that. Yeah.
But I think they know so much about their coffee that's also translating in the cup too.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cool thing to have coffee in country.
Yeah.
And to experience how they enjoy it.
Yeah.
And how they serve it and what's important in their cafe, like how it's laid out, how it's, table service versus counter service, all of it is different sometimes.
It leads to some really empowering national pride as well.
Yeah.
I always get that vibe when I go to coffee shops in Mexico where the key is like, this is coffee from Mexico. Like we produce this coffee and we're serving this coffee. Viva Mexico type of vibe, right? Like this is great. Like, this is our coffee, which is really cool to see as well.
It is. And I think it's cool to see like just how things are evolving with technology and communication. And I think there's so much more information that's being shared even from origin to origin now in processing, in like quality and how, agronomy even is kind of supported. And so it's all a good thing, but it's also like at the same time kind of bittersweet because of climate change. Climate change, we can't ignore that.
Right.
And I think...
How is that affecting things?
Things are getting warmer. There's more rain certain times of year, like, where certain origins had, all the flowering happening at once. Now they're seeing flowering on some parts of the tree, or, things are a little bit more sporadic so that, volumes are different. If you have to go through and pick multiple times because things are developing at different times or things aren't maturing correctly or everything.
Right. It just makes the chain of effort much more complicated. I hadn't thought about that.
It's the health of each origin, and I think things will have to pivot. There will be coffees that will naturally come to be able to withstand the changes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We just need to be aware and understanding of how climate change is going to affect it.
Right.
And our expectations of quality and volumes and availability are all going to have to be adjusted.
Yeah.
So I think that's where this scarcity and maybe the fear is coming from in the market. And I think, just being aware of it and helping to navigate on all the supply chains is going to be helpful.
Yeah, super important.
Yeah.
You feel like that's going to lead to a difference in price too?
Of course.
Yeah.
It has to.
Right.
Because if you're spending more time on the labor to get the cherries picked, or if you're spending more on the fuel to transport that,
Right.
all of that, and has to shape the price.
Yeah, I feel like specialty coffee in that regard has done a good job at setting itself up for that sort of volatility in a sense, at least for the consumer. Maybe I'm mistaken, but there's this constant emphasis placed in the marketing and in the sale of roasted coffee on the producers and their effort, and the fact that coffee is a cherry and it grows on trees, and trees need the environment to be beneficial for it to grow and for us to have access to it and such, where with a difference in price, I mean, personally, if I suddenly now have to start paying more for the bags of coffee that I'm gonna buy, I understand why, and it's a bummer, but I'll still pay for it, where I feel like I'm not getting conned for the price difference because I understand why it's more expensive,
Yeah. I think also too, there's always going to be different levels in every industry, right? Like in wine, in beer, in alcohol, there's always different levels of you can have a community blend coffee that, has a bunch of small producers all throwing, for a profile versus some really manicured cup of excellence, something really high end and special, and there's a range.
Totally.
And I think understanding why the ranges have different price points is also very valuable.
Totally.
And it's what the market will bear.
Right.
Some markets can't bear it, so it will shape everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you the most excited about in your industry at the moment? Is there something you're seeing that you're excited and happy to see on your side of the industry in particular?
I think definitely. I love when I see, people that have families that produce coffee, that are building out cafes and brands that are focused on just those origins.
Right.
That's exciting. That's so new. And I think that storytelling is so personal and beautiful to see. Yeah. I think other things that are exciting are more just focused on the experience. I love that now we're seeing a lot more DJs popping up in cafes. I don't know why. I think it's just so fun.
I think so too.
It's oh cool, it's a party. Let's just enjoy our time, you know? I think, let's see. I think people really leaning into the quality is always exciting, and I think that will always be something that's very special. But I think having more diversity on menus, more diversity in our clientele, in our cafe culture, I think that's exciting.
Yeah.
We're inviting more people in than ever before, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
We have to make room for that.
Right. I have so many questions for you, and I think the best way to get through a couple of less existential, more kind of hard fact questions,
Sure.
let's say, would be kind of rapid fire of questions, hot takes type of thing,
Oh,
you know?
God. Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff.
I'm ready.
Okay, so what's a hard conversation you've had with a producer or roaster recently?
Man, it's tough. I think financials are always the tough. I think I'm not involved in the purchasing of green coffee as much as I am selling it. And I think, you know, just being like very aware of, you know, cash flow and how things have to be, like that's a hard time. You know, if somebody's late on a payment and you're like, I just need to know when we're getting paid.
Right.
You know, I hate those scenarios, but that's kind of a difficult time.
No doubt. What stresses you out the most right now in this role, aside from, of course, that sort of situation? That
situation for sure. I think stressful is maybe the war in Iran and how that's going to shape shipments. But at the same time, I think it is what it is. And, you know, we can only control so much. So that's probably the next stressful thing. And climate change. Yeah.
What's one mistake cafes make when buying coffee?
Ooh. I think maybe the thing I would say is just like, you know, the endless hunting down coffee is a little bit excessive. Sometimes I see a lot of like sample, and it's like, did you actually try it? Did you know, are you getting that much further with your buying? You know, sometimes importers are buying the same coffees, or sometimes, you know, the same grade is just, you know, apples to apples. So I think focusing on, you know, just planning, I think this is the biggest thing.
I love that. That's interesting for sure. Because a lot of times it can also be the roast, right? It's like, stop focusing so much on buying such a wide variety and being too picky in that regard, maybe, but
I think
focus
the
more on your
profile
profile.
is more like where people need to kind of focus.
Curate your profile. Yeah, I like that. What does relationship coffee actually look like behind the scenes?
Ooh, I think it's as much time to the relationship as you want, right? Like, is the relationship with me important? And like me understanding your needs and helping to connect the supply chain to you? Is it, you know, that you are a huge fan of this person's coffee and you just continually buy it every year because you love it and you love that you get to see every harvest and you get to share that? I think going to a farm and meeting somebody and seeing their farm is such a magical thing. Not everyone has the access to it. So I think you can still have a relationship within the supply chain. And I think there's a difference in that than just, you know, picking on a website, you know, or, you know, I think it's whatever you want to define that relationship as. I think it's important that we, you know, it's not just a buzzword. It's like, it's meaningful.
Yeah.
So if you find meaning in it and you find meaning in, you know, just buying the same coffee because you know that you like that coffee, that's a plus. If you like the relationship because you can call me and say, hey, I'm having a really bad day. I'm stressed about finding this single origin. I need your help. What do you have coming? That's a relationship, you know, like things like that.
Yeah.
Meaningful.
Really cool. For sure.
Yeah.
Are importers becoming more like curators, financiers, or storytellers?
I think both, all of it.
All of them.
All of it, yeah. I mean, you can't have one without the other, you know, like there's a level of financing that happens, there's a level of curation that happens, there's a level of storytelling that has to happen. So it's all of those things have to happen in order for me to get the coffee to you.
Gotcha.
It's just how it is, you know?
Yeah. What conversations are happening at Origin that cafe staff never hear about?
I think the difficulties that they're seeing in like climate change and, you know, the cost of production. I think, you know, sometimes I see like flashy like build outs or like equipment or things that are innovative in that way. But to me, like the conversations around like what the needs from the producers are just still need to kind of be on everyone's radar.
I like that.
Yeah.
I really like that. If someone outside the industry asked you, is specialty coffee healthy right now, what would you say? And of course, with the recent developments of the world,
I think it's, I was thinking about this. I always think about this, and I think it's always a little bit volatile, and I think it's always a little bit vulnerable. And I think it's not to say that it's healthy or unhealthy, it's just that we have to be aware of how to adapt with it. And that's just the mindset of, the world isn't really healthy right now.
Right.
And I think that's shaping how other things are shaping. So I think it's less about like, we can sit here and say like, this is healthy or not. It's just, how do we continue to produce and buy and sell and brew and roast specialty coffee. That's what makes it healthy. Creating the value all the way down to the consumer is the way that we make it healthy.
Yeah.
And helping navigate the challenges is how we ensure that it stays healthy.
Yeah.
If it ever is healthy.
Right. Yeah. Well, I know I kind of put you on the spot for all these rapid questions,
great.
so thank you for that.
Yeah.
There's this really cool podcast that happens in Australia with Kirk Pearson. It's called The Coffee Show with Kirk Pearson. He has some really cool guests on and stuff. It's a really good watch or listen. But he ends his episodes by asking his guests to ask him a question. I've questioned you so much throughout this whole time. What would you ask me?
Ooh, okay. What are you afraid the most of with coffee and how you are in coffee? If any, if you have any fears.
I do, I do. I never expected coffee to lead to a complete lifestyle change. I never expected that. I loved it going into it, mainly as like a pour-over fanatic and stuff. I just didn't have a deeper level of appreciation for the people involved and having regulars and having your regulars not just be regulars, but be friends and making plans with them out of work, and also having your coworkers not just be coworkers, be your friends, and all that goes on when you're involved. Even like where I'm at right now, this house, I got word of it through working at the coffee shop, so it's led to such a huge lifestyle change for me that I absolutely love, and I wouldn't want to not be in it. And I'm worried that sometimes life can have these unexpected events. Like when I got diagnosed with arthritis, I was worried about having to stop working at the coffee shop because standing for long periods of time was an issue for me, painful. And then these unexpected life events like that car crash that I told you about, that I got my car totaled out of the blue while we were parked in our parking space. And these are things that demand you to sometimes pivot for money. I wouldn't pivot out of this industry because I want to do something else.
Yeah.
I kind of love the lifestyle that I lead within it, and I feel like it still allows me to be involved in other things that I like to do, like music, like arts. Even though I'm working in coffee, it feels like these things are happening parallel to coffee, not just parallel, but also very close to coffee. Artists stop by the warehouse all the time, like visual artists or music artists, and I have artists of different sorts come into the shop as customers, and I get to talk to them as well, which is another one of my, things I love in life, right? Like music and all these things. So I still feel like I'm close enough to other things that I like being in coffee. And I fear that life will ask more money of me for X or Y reason. And coffee won't be enough to sustain what I need to, that coffee won't be enough to pay that bill or do that thing. And that then I will be forced to pivot out of coffee into something that can pay that bill. That would be my main worry, honestly. And I think about it all the time in ways to mitigate that and avoid that. But sometimes just like unexpected things happen. Like when I got arthritis, I was living in Mexico, and I need a very specific type of medication that is just hard to get. It's available in Mexico, but government policies and the way government works and bureaucracy and paperwork and all these systems are very poorly done and executed over there, and it's just harder to do. Like, you can get it, but it's going to be really hard to get. I've been lucky enough I was born here in the States, so been a U.S. citizen all my life. So at first I was reluctant to pivot outside of Mexico because I love being over there, and I have my friends groups over there, and pretty much like the same life and friends that I lead here, I have over there. So I didn't want to leave that, but then I was forced to because I couldn't get the medication, so I had to move here, right? So kind of forgot where I was going exactly with that, but
it sounded like you're afraid that coffee won't be enough to continue in it, and I think
that's the gist of it. Yeah,
I think like you can find a way back to coffee, you can find a way into coffee, and you can find a way into a career in coffee. And I think one of the things that I wasn't always aware of, like, this is gonna sound really stupid, but there was a time where I was like, I'm just waiting for somebody to like pluck me out and like get me into the role that I need to be in. And I'm like, one day I woke up and I was like, nobody's coming for you.
right.
Nobody's coming for you. You have to do it. You have to find it. You have to be persistent and get to where you need to go.
Right.
And I think just if you have that mindset, you'll find it and you'll get there. It might take longer than you want. It might take longer than you think, but nobody's coming for you. Nobody's going to be like, hey, this podcast that I saw one time, you'd be perfect for this role.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you need to shake hands and meet people and bring your own seat to the table sometimes, and you will. You know, if you love it that much, you will find it.
Right.
So don't be
I love
afraid,
that.
but I think understand that if you want it, you have to make it for yourself.
Totally.
You know.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and I can relate so much to that because I was much more involved in music before I was doing coffee. And when I was involved in music, especially when I was younger, like a lot young, like 13 or 14, which was when I kind of picked it up more frequently, I had that thought. Well, it's easy to have those thoughts at that young of an age, right?
Yeah, you're gonna get discovered.
Yeah, that whole discover thing it's a thing in the music industry. Yeah, so
Totally.
At some point, I realized that where it's like nobody's ever gonna come knocking on my door saying, "I heard your Facebook video, and I'm here with a contract that's gonna, make you famous or whatever."
Yeah.
That was never gonna happen. So that I feel like at that age at least threw me for like a sadness loop for a second where I was like, dang,
You can't be stuck. You can't be stuck there.
Yeah, and then also it leads to saying like, I don't got it. That's why it's not going to happen. And then say, well, no, it's not about that. It's like that doesn't happen to pretty much anybody. And then like understanding that. So I like the fact that like what you're saying can exactly be translated into the coffee industry as well. And at the end of the day too, any industry that you choose, it's like you really have to be out there and getting it and making the relationships and connections. And
you have to push for what you want in anything. In anything. So it's like, why shouldn't coffee be different? You know?
Totally. I feel very fortunate for the spot I'm in right now because even though I've been in coffee for a small amount of time, coming up on 2 years, I've lived in a great environment, work at a great coffee shop where I'm constantly learning. And I've been given the opportunity also to train baristas, and that's opened up a whole different area to the industry for me, and like different conversations and being involved in different processes and learning a lot and stuff. And then now like going to World at Coffee as well. So it's like right now I can identify that I'm riding a good wave.
Yeah.
Right now where I feel like I don't want to pivot out of this particular situation right now because the wave is good, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel lucky to be able to appreciate that I'm not pressured right now or that I'm not stuck right now, because many times that wave is over and it's not until you're looking back at it that you're like, damn.
That was good.
That was a good one and I didn't even realize it,
Yeah, you have to enjoy it in the moment. You have to be right here. You can't be like always like tomorrow.
Yeah.
You have to be
wishing for
living
something
in the
else.
moment. And
Yeah.
I think it'll be really cool to see in 5 years, looking back on this conversation, where
Yeah.
you're at and where I'm
Super
at.
cool.
And like, I think you never know what's around the corner, which
Yeah.
is cool.
Yeah, I
So-
totally agree. That's a big part of why I started this idea of what's in your cup, because even though it can be marketed with, you can choose what words to market it with.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, for me, it's like a little bit of an archive or a digital diary.
100%.
Precisely to say, I don't know, I might put it out there and nothing might happen, but I'll keep doing it because I get to sit down with people that I'm super interested in and have great conversations. But I know for certain that I will look back on it over time and I'll say, damn, wow, that was a cool moment, or that was an interesting conversation, or like now they're doing this, or now I'm doing this, you know. There's a lot of uncertainty as to like where it's gonna lead me towards, and I've learned with music to not have any expectations as to like what's gonna happen around it. But if anything, I look back on the music that I made in the past and the friends that I made in the past, and I'm like, damn, that's really cool. I might hear a song and I can now detach myself from the quality of the song or how good it is or how good it was mixed and mastered, and just totally say, nah, but I remember being in this guy's bedroom recording this and we were having beer, and you know, just like remembering and appreciating it for that moment in time.
Definitely.
So I think this will definitely be that, and it'll be really cool to kind of look back on.
Yay.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Well,
I'm
thank
really
you so
excited.
much.
Thank you for making the time and
Thank
being
you.
here.
Of course.
And having so many great answers to so many questions.
Glad to be a little, blip in your timeline too.
Absolutely, yeah. And not just a blip. I mean, every time I hear you at the warehouse having the conversations you have with Curtis and David as well, I'm always kind of like low-key eavesdropping, saying like, oh, there's so many things I don't know and I want to learn about and all these things.
Ask all the questions. We're here for you.
Thank you.